All right, welcome back to the recap for the trading on the day, also known as the daily trading recap, as we like to call it, for what is Wednesday today, the 6th of October, 2021. Spy a little update today, kind of still holding this recent range we've been in, these little lows after this hard pullback, after all-time highs once again. See what we're going to go from here. VIX still kind of trending pretty decently. Let's take a look at the volatility index there, above 20 still. So pushing some nice amount of volatility and volume in that regard. Dollar volume in the other sense too, just take a quick look at for NASDAQ. We are 1 minute after the close here. Still like $150 billion volume we've been holding around for NASDAQ. That tech sector, nicely $243 billion volume in OTC market, $2.3 billion. Still kind of the same thing we've been seeing in the past few months, coming out of the summer months especially well too. So that was that. Talked yesterday a little bit to Chris about how we've been seeing these just kind of former dip and rippers that used to work out great. Just play for a nice little 10% trade right away in the morning, kind of predictable. Maybe gap up pre-market, pull back a little bit. Maybe in that after market open just a little bit. Find a nice little entry point. You can sell it pretty easily going to the upside. A lot of these, pretty much the vast majority, if not all of them, just seem to, if they push a little bit, then they just immediately tank. They go almost from high of day to low of day within the same minute candle on huge volume. We've been seeing that over and over again. MARPS was a good example of that yesterday. I think USEG yesterday was, and just time and time again too, that we've been seeing this. And I've certainly had that feeling as well too, that a lot of these, the big kind of pretty pigs that to start off the morning that pop up on the scanners in the morning session, they just continue to have this hard trend fade day for the whole day. So we got to capitalize on it and take what's there to stop just tricking myself too. I know I did that time and time again of just playing that in my head of, oh, well, it's just not working out and the trade's not there and saying boo-hoo me, still trying to go long those when the charts are saying stop trying to go long those, right? So now kind of making that adjustment a little bit and learning from the market and what it wants to say too. So I certainly don't feel like I'm nailing them right now. I'm nailing them a little bit on LMFA, just for the whole day trend, playing it that way too. But I think definitely I'm going to start easing more into that short side of this equation as the charts are saying that's where they want to go in that sense. Bitcoin also tapping 54,000 today too. I think it's really just the motivation off of the US government saying that they're not going to have any deregulationing factors on them too. So we're getting some nice action out of that. And that is it for the introduction. Let's get into starting off with ZETA, which was my first trade. This is a NYSE company, so it is kind of a more of an actual company, and their website's pretty legit too. But recent IPO, had a crazy volume day yesterday off of decent-ish news on the 4th that came out after the close. They also had an 8K that came out before that too. So this is the type of pattern that I've watched a long time ago beforehand when I was tracking that morning time pattern, especially as well too, where you get these huge kind of green, nice full day green day trends. This one closed pretty well into the close with decent volume, but the after hours was just subliminal and really nothing happening. And that's what I want to look for in attack too. Going to the short side, risking that obvious high of day of 824. If this thing's touching or coming close to anywhere today or two, I know the trend on these second day plays is kind of iffy of if shorts are trying to still hold this overnight from yesterday, or if longs are going to continue to come in to buy this thing up. But wasn't so convicted on this one, and that's obviously, as the position size says, of 40 shares, did not take the most incredibly amazing position size on this one because of that fact. Also factored in the IPO huge volume day of where this came from, that we're now coming close to step up to that area where the volume profile would say that, hey, the kind of collection of potential bag holders is right around this area. So if they for some reason didn't see it the crazy day it had yesterday, and then they come to the market today saying, oh sweet, it's coming back up to those levels, it's got nice volume and liquidity, maybe I can get out here at this point for a break, even if that are just a little bit below after suffering a hard little downtrend here for the past few months. So playing into that factor as well too, knowing it wasn't going to be the most volatile, most awesome immediate down move percentage wise, but trying to play, going for more of that trend play rather than just nailing entries and exits or looking for the most volatile stocks per se. So with this strategy, again, I mentioned it a little bit yesterday too. In the pre-market, it's really just kind of like a blind entry for that first one at least. It doesn't really matter. You can try to play games with this one, especially for what this price action was. It's not like you're going to pick an exact top with how choppy and inconsistent the spread is, the level 2. So started in with like a 20 share position size. Knew I wanted to get a little bit more and was waiting for potentially it to consolidate out a little bit more, just show a little bit stronger signs to the downside for me, in my mind, for me to establish a bigger position. But now that I'm trying to get back into these short positions, I knew that I didn't want to take a huge position size on it. So kind of just keeping it small, but scaling in to say, hey, what is the correct entry point? I don't have that much expertise in these areas as of yet for this specific trade, but scaling in little by little, taking 5 share, taking 10 shares, entries on these ones to the downside on that. So, and I didn't even factor in, looking back at it now too, this $8 whole level didn't even really cross my mind. I was trading at this one. And that's why I do these recaps, is because, looking back on the chart right now of where and how you could have played these things, it's kind of obvious to see, okay, went to 8, it kind of tried to perk above, but then failed, and then pulled back more, and then stopped down around 7.6. And, that was really the max opportunity for volatility, the range on this one for the day that you could play in the morning. But in the moment, it's so different of, okay, well, it's kind of faking out, breaking out here, and all the different factors that go into what I'm actually seeing while I'm intra-trade in that sense. So different little factors that I wrote in my journal too. 787 for some reason, as we're getting into this time frame here, that price level, that was soaking up a lot of size for some reason. Then it eventually broke. You got a nice volume candle to push that to the downside. For whatever reason, that produced some amount of support that eventually faded. That was there. I ended up having a nice cushion for my average entry price after I took off over half of my position at that 7.6 level. I was glad. I think it was probably the last one that got picked at directly at 7.6 precisely, before it just kind of hovered right above that and then continued to curl back to VWAP for how minimal this one actually did end up fading the whole day. So as it's curling back up, and now I'm sitting kind of with half my position, knowing that, okay, this is kind of a wash trade, whatever it wants to do, but also still playing with the factor of getting that experience of, hey, this thing could still go to the downside or it could go to the upside. It's going to be a great experience either way. So I did have an average entry price just above VWAP, 786, I think I was. So being able to sit through this little move here where it's, kind of testing that VWAP reclaim, looking pretty weak, but I'm still kind of finger on the trigger ready, but also not holding myself hard to a technical level of VWAP, anything on the chart, just myself of what my entry price is. So understanding, okay, sweet, pull back off that one, but then understanding, okay, now we're not breaking any new lows here. We're not failing off of that VWAP attempt to. We're still building with strength. Great exit for that final clearing me out of the position and ending the trade to, I forget what percentage move this was. So it looks like it ended up being a 2% trade that I pulled it for. I mean, which is pretty decent for this thing not actually falling hard of what I expected it or wanted it to do for this kind of second day fader play that I categorize as a first green day short, looking for any downside or any longs coming in to push this one down that were bag holders. Panicking out a little bit to sell more on this thing, but it didn't happen. It just held right at that $8 level going into the close here. And this is a real company. It's not like this was a hard, highly convicted trade for me on the day too. And I think that the position size reflected that a little bit. But just kind of getting my foot back in the door for these style of trades too, that I do feel have a little bit of a higher probability of happening the second day after a nice first green day, especially after that amount of volume compared to what it's done on the daily. It's just a little bit sketchy of what it wants to do, and it's kind of iffy. But I do feel the downside potentially right away in the morning session too, even if it has a little morning spike to be able to sell into, similar to dip and rip patterns. I think it's more probable that these things just have a little bit of sell-off or more of a rest day on the second day compared to whatever it does on the third day. I'm not even trying to fool around what this one wants to do, but that one was ZETA. Looking at LMFAO now. LMFAO. This was former runner. I remember trading this one on the 17th of August that I pulled up here for another dip and rip day. I actually pulled up that chart. Let's see if, oh yes, we got it still loaded. This was, I forget if there was a news catalyst on this one, but it was after hours news from the previous trading day, potentially earnings actually. That's what this little light bulb is. Give me the button. That's not what we want. But I had a little nice goes. Again, this is like the summer months trading still of this year, so it wasn't the most volatile, crazy. It's not like we're trying to compare this to winter of 2020 or still January, February 2021. But still holding decently coming into that pre-market hours, but then not having any amount of upside and just failing at every VWAP attempt. You get a little perk here again, but then failure too. So keeping that in the back of my mind of how the characteristics of this one like to work out for today, because this was one of the pop-ups on the scanner for pre-market, little big spiker. News catalyst today was they expand their planned cryptocurrency mining business, which of course they're hitting that buzzword with Bitcoin spiking as well too. So looking for any amount of push they can get out of this thing. Floats, a low floater of 4.9 million as well. And then we get into that pre-market point where cracks under VWAP and that just doesn't have any strength to continue on. And this reminded me of, I want to pull up, I even wrote this down, of September 29th. Was just looking through my old videos of looking at different stocks of how the different pre-market percentage movers that would do similar. AUVI did this one, was one I found, and I'm sure there are so many other ones, but kind of similar things. So you get the pre-market spike, holds VWAP at least decently, but then just fails to really cling back to reclaim VWAP and just has that suffering, bleeding action into market open. And then the rest of market hours just continues to die off. So it's playing the same thing, same kind of mentality. SNOA was on the 28th of September. A little bit similar to, it holds above VWAP a lot longer, consolidates a little bit more, and then but then under VWAP into market hours, and then again, just no even real attempt and just dying into all of market hours. That type of trend play is just so sexy to me. It's not about nailing a perfect entry and exit. Obviously, growing with these trades more and more, doing more and more of them, you're going to recognize the optimal entry points, but it's hard to say too within the first few minutes of market open, that's your optimal entry. You're trying to spike it into that, slap an entry on that high of day, but saying, oh, well, I think, even if this dip reclaims it back a little bit above VWAP, which is what I thought was going to happen today on LMFA. Let's go back to the chart for on that one. And here I am with just a super small position size on this one, 40 shares in max after two different little entries of 20 shares apiece. I thought we were going to get a little bit more of a reclaim. I did not think we were going to break that 5.5 high, but I thought we could tap this little, potentially even 5.3, maybe get a little spike above VWAP that then cracks below. Looking for the same thing that Jack number 2 pointed on VYGR today, which was another, again, pre-market percentage mover. I think he actually got a pretty bad pre-market trade on this one because of how much it spiked into market open. But same thing again here, kind of looking, this was more of a double top, triple top action, but this huge reject candle. And like I mentioned in the introduction, like me and Chris were talking about, looking for that as the confirmation that, okay, yep, here we go, that's time to die. And this one offered a little bit of opportunity if you're not being greedy, if you're getting, you can wait 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes even after that hard red candle to find an entry around that range and then still play it to the downside for a decent little move here. 3.8 if you're tapping just 3.59, not a full 10% move to there, but I mean, take the money, take the profits as they're there. That's a predictable and very probable trade to happen. Because in that short position, if you're getting an entry around here, for this stock to fight against what was the biggest volume candle on the day, the biggest smackdown rejection of all the longs, trying to push it, that would potentially push this thing up further after that position. They're just so emotionally drained from that one too. They're tanked out of that position. It just wears them out consistently over and over again. That's how these things continue to just fade over and over again, because it just wears the longs out. They're just like, why even try anymore? That's what I'm at, especially too. Why even dip and rip anymore? It's hard for me to feel super convicted in them because of the probability of them even playing out. So going back to LMFA on that same type of thesis, that's what I'm looking for. There's that spike to sell into, and that's kind of what I saw here at this point as it's trying to come back to VWAP. So I did not have anywhere near full position size at that point. Still had the 20 share little starter position because I thought, maybe it has this little first 2 candle action and then just falls hard off of there. But it did have a little bit more of a peak than I was expecting, playing off of that thesis to say, okay, I think it could go, if it goes closer to VWAP, I think it could go break VWAP, actually play a little bit more too, and then I can get my full position size from there to play the fade on this one. But it just didn't happen. You get this hard peak and then fail, and I'm going, okay, I got to get a little bit more position because I think that could be the end of it. And that was proven right too, of how it just started immediately dumping from there. Great price action that is pushing far, far away immediately from entry, slapping new lows consistently. Very easy to set limit orders for this thing to run into. Got my first exit. I think I actually took a bigger exit on the first 4-7 exit. I think I took 30 shares off here and then let the last 10 shares go because I didn't know if this one was going to do one of those little stoppy fool arounds with this 4-7 area, maybe pull back a little bit more to VWAP, and not like it was going to go green on the day too, but it just kind of just does nothing. Stagnation that I've seen play out time and time again, where it's just kind of frustrating, and for a short trying to cover at a good price point that it gets these little variations that's hard to really get a nice price level. So I just wanted to take off more. I knew I was done sizing into this one after it was breaking that new low day, thinking, okay, I missed my chance to add for size, but then playing it as it was, still taking the experience as it was there. Not a slam dunk P&L trade on either of these, on LMFA or ZETA, but great reminder and great push for me in my trading career, especially coming off of yesterday as well too, just taking great strides forward in how I view trading in itself, not just holding myself hard set to, all my trades have to be 10% profit opportunity, and I'm not going to take off any shares until it gets to 10%, blah, 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 blah. Take the money as it's there, right? A profit is a profit. And yeah, the adage is there of you can't go broke taking profits, but you also can't get rich by cutting your profits early. And again, I've mentioned this so many times before that I have not had that problem in a long time of cutting my winners so obscenely short. And I think that's a far better problem to have than turning winners into losers and trying to squeeze out or stretch out more of a trade than what is really there, especially in the type of market that we're into with this one. So I'll take those learning lessons as I'll take the experiences as they're there. It's not like I'm trying to become a millionaire today. It's each and every single step is getting me closer and closer to that goal, to financial freedom and all of this. So that was LMFA ONDS. I've been looking at this one for a long time. It popped up on my price alert that I had it alert at like 9.9. So just under that $10 level for how it's been holding on the daily. This is a low floater. It's not the most, there's a mosquito. This is a low floater, not the most liquid or the most volume one, 20 million floater. It's a tech company. I thought it was an oil and gas sector play. But again, this little tiny range that was holding around where that first nice little volume perk day, green day was, especially that $10 whole level area is great psychological level as well. So, and it's hard, again, too, as I get that price alert, that it's the price action to that point is still in this straight up area, and then it's still hovering around here. So I ended up trying to take like a 10 share position size, I think, at max, of trying to play the breakout, but then it just ended up failing again here. So I just literally cut it for 1 cent profit and just moved on to the next one. Didn't even try to fool around with it, because then you get this pullback to VWAP, perfectly bounces off VWAP, tries again for that $10 break to the upside. Looks like it's going to do it with the volume, and then fails, rejects again, but still holds and lingers around there. So it's all about that aspect of supply and demand around that $10 level. If it's just going to hold right around there of $10, then obviously the stock wants to trade around that. That's what the company's worth, in a sense, too. That's kind of how I have to think of it. It doesn't have to just go immediately reverse to the upside of $10, like, oh, sweet, now we can go up because we're beyond $10. That's just where the stock can move, because that's where the buyers and sellers are. That's how it likes to work. And especially with littler volume. It's still like $18 million volume, but compared to what this kind of company does, it is a NASDAQ, but then again, too, just these past days have not been the most crazy volatile or most attractive to a day trader, retail trader, in a sense. These things just don't have to move absolutely crazy. But then again, after this, third or consolidation on that $10 level, you get the reject. It breaks hard under VWAP. Looks like it's going to fail. Actually, pretty hard, a little panic, but then reclaims once again, tries again, fails again, pulls back even harder again to break to the upside, peters around, has a harder break to 10.2, and then fails and breaks down again too. So just kind of the headache with that of how many times you would have to be in and out of this thing for what would be a 2% trade at max if you nailed this one, trying to play from $10 to 10.22. Is that, yeah, that's 2% of whoopee, right, of what that was. So you're just continuing to define how I do my scans and stuff, because I did have this one on my scans for a long time, looking for that $10 break, initially from that big first volume day as well. And then we finally get this nice consolidation, a bigger volume day to come in today too, that looks like it could have done it. But it just really didn't have it. So could potentially have some more opportunity in the bag for the next few trading days here. I will continue to keep it on a watch, but this is another chart that's continuing to refine how I look at my scans and how I define what stocks move and what specific factors I'm looking for in that preparation outside of market hours for trading on the day. GROM, I also wanted to talk about. Judas Priest. This was the chart we were looking for yesterday. Oh my gosh, that price action was just absolutely ludicrous. I didn't see specifically if Tui actually traded this one or he was just commenting on how crazy it was. You just get this amazing, incredible rise. This was the same type of thesis that we're just trading on yesterday, looking for that nice multi-day hold here. This is a former runner off of that Palt and I think Prague as well too. Those kind of sector movers. That's Skeeto. Huge volume on the day as well. Is this a low floater? Forget your 10 million floater as well too. So lots of factors going forward for it, and you have many different areas. VWAP holds here that you can trade off of that $4 whole level area as well. So many different reasons or entry points that you can validate or vouch for yourself as a means to get in this one. But I sure would not have nailed this one for the full move that it was today if I actually had traded this one, depending on where I actually got into this one. Maybe I could have seen myself if I had actually pulled up the chart, getting an entry around $4, trading it around there, and then scaling out in like 4.4 as it's kind of petering out here with these red candles. But then, geez, it just got to continue to halt to the upside, and then you get a halt to the downside on this huge volume consolidation. Another halt to the downside that actually gaps down below VWAP, and then blah, 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 does whatever. Has another attempt to break above VWAP. It holds well in that little afternoon lunch hour session. You get this nice perk to the upside, which is a lower probability trade in my book for how many times we've seen these kind of VWAP holds or afternoon tries of it looking good, holding VWAP, technically putting in these highs, lows. How many times those have failed off again and again. It's a hard for me one to pull the trigger on that style of trade. But it worked out decently well today. But again, another reminder, you can't get greedy and try to hold them into the close. They just do not run into the close. They do not hold that well. But that was the move we were looking for yesterday, and we missed it today on GROM. Just absolutely crazy. SNMP, similar to ONDS. I wanted to mention this one because I mentioned this one yesterday. It was short sale restricted from yesterday. I think obviously because of how far I pulled down from the close, this little dip midday, but just nothing happening. No volume, no continuation of what this daily was looking like. The volume profile on me for this one was looking kind of cool, and how it was kind of building a little bit of volume around this recent little range, especially after this, just kind of keeping that main doji candle, this big volume day in mind of where we were at in price action to try and potentially go to the upside on that one. But nothing comes of this one today, too. So good lesson for me on doing my scans and what makes stock move of don't choose that one. And then CEI, I also have to mention, of course, at a 40% down day today again, too. It doesn't look that crazy from what it did yesterday, but still just 40% continuing to absolutely fall off the table. It just shows here, these pump and dumpers, these patterns play out over and over and over again. That downside can be in drastically and beautifully if you are in for it. So great move continuation on that one today. Watch us going into tomorrow. Really nothing hard. FAMI's moving again to getting a little bit of volume, getting some nice price action in the close. Nothing technically on the daily that I'm very peaked in or interested in for what it's going to do, but just, of course, former runner, kind of craziness on this one. So it could do some crazy things if it wants to, and we'll keep watching it. It had some hard little sell-off here just right before the close, so that's another thing we got to keep in mind on that one. But that is it, coming in hot under 25 minutes. I like to see it. Just keep it nice and simple. We are taking a little bit more steps closer each and every single day to that goal of financial freedom and independence and not having to wear pants to your job. I'm living that dream every single day too, and I'm so incredibly thankful for it. Oh gosh, yeah, we're taking good steps. It's good to see day by day. I thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.